You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
FM 88.1 WHPR, Highland Park.
WVIE 107.3 FM Charlotte, Amalia, Virgin Islands.
The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors.
The white man did create the problem, but it's our problem to solve. And that's a quote from Black Panther, Mark Clark, that I picked up on the show we had last week. So I have Acthun Terrell in the studio with me. Say what's up to Detroit and my listeners in the Virgin Islands and around the country.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
We have Trische Duckworth.
What's up, Detroit?
And a new brother that I made today, Mr. Brian Foley.
Thank you for having me on the show. And how everybody doing?
I am excited because we're going to break down this Willie Lynch letter. So, the Willie Lynch letter and the destruction of black unity. I've read several excerpts that said that this wasn't true, that it was fiction. Have any of you guys heard of that?
Yes.
That it wasn't true.
Right.
And it seems very factual to me. Now, whether or not I've heard a play on the words like, well, they weren't using African American or whatever back then. They were, or blacks, they were saying Negro, whatever. You can play on the words all you want to. But the breakdown of the mentality, the separation and destruction of the family and community in a sense that we call community, you know, a group of people collectively, it did all of that.
Yeah.
So whether it's a hoax or not, the white man did create the problem, and it's our problem to solve.
Right.
Yes, it is.
So tell me your experience about the Willie Lynch letter, Brian. Like how you find out about it, and what did you think about it?
Wow. First time on the show, you're going to put me up on blast like that.
Welcome, Miss Black Coffee, no sugar, no cream, straight talk.
Yeah, right.
Just
Okay.
go
All
with
right.
it. You ain't
All
even
right.
got to try to filter nothing. Just get close to the FCC line.
If my memory serves me right, the first time I became aware of the Willie Lynch letter is in a book by Dr. Claude Anderson. I believe the book was Little Known Black Secrets or Little Known Black History or something like that. Little Known Black History Facts.
Yeah.
Right. That was volume 1. And that I believe was the first time I came about it, right, and read about it. Now, when I first time I read it, it made perfectly good sense. Right, and I understand what you're saying. Some people say it's not true. Some people say it's false. Some people say a white man made it up. Whatever, you get what I mean. And so, but when I read it, it made perfectly good sense. Pit the the light-skinned slave against the dark-skinned slave, the young against the old, the female against the male. Right, and we see those same social dynamics playing out in our communities and in our cities throughout. So, whether or not I'm just going to say this, because I don't have an actual copy of the document itself or know who the author it is. Whether or not it's true or not, it is true. So that's no denying that those dynamics, those social dynamics do stand true in our community. We experience them every day. I know I experienced it from being in the military. Right, I went in the military in the late 70s, and I'm somewhat light. You know, my color varies, but I went down south in particular South Carolina, Georgia, and what have you, and I was of a lighter complexion. And most of the military members and the people were down there, and by me being just a little bit lighter than them, I was shown favoritism by the whites. Elites, the white class, the sergeants, the military, and I was given a better duty than my darker complected, or let me just say this, I was lighter than, because black is the original color, everything else is a derivative of that. So I was a little bit lighter than the norm, right? And I got better treatment. I didn't understand it, I just thought I was better than them. You get what I mean? And it perpetuated that. And that was the first time I experienced that for real and recognized it for what it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we will go to Mr. Acthun Terrell. Give me your take on the Willie Lynch letter and when you heard about it.
Well, it was a black bookstore called the Shrine of the Black Madonna. I always visit this bookstore. And this book piqued my interest. It says The Making of a Slave by Willie Lynch. When I seen the word lynch, I wanted to see, was that word a derivative of what they did to the black folks? And I picked up the book. I walk in the store, I pick up the book, and I just flipped through a couple of pages. One page in particular came, like Mr. Foley said, where they're divided the people amongst groups, light skin against dark. You know, the male, the older male versus the younger male. That gave me a sense of, wow, that's what they're doing now. You know, I see it now. I see it. I was a bus driver at 18. I drove the city bus. And I would see how the bus drivers would get treated that were light-skinned, so to speak. They were lighter than me. They would have better preference, or the whites bus drivers would have better rides, better buses than those of us who was of darker skin complexion. So that right there made me realize. And as I looked at my neighborhood, I noticed how the women were treating the little boys. The same way I seen in a book. When I read in a book how a pregnant mother would take her little infant son and protect them, you know, and try to make them strong in certain instances, but make them weak in other instances. Same way I read in the book. So.
Wow. Thank you for that elaboration. Trische, and I must say this, I get all excited when I can get my producer from behind the scenes on the mic, because I'm telling you, this sister, we go deep. I wish we could record some of our phone calls, but I got her in front of the mic. So give us your take on the Willie Lynch letter when you first heard about it.
So let me say this. A lot of the people don't even really understand the Willie Lynch letter. A lot of people don't even talk about it. I didn't know about it. I didn't come from a home that was heavily talking about it or had the information. It wasn't until I was in college and it was made reference to in a class, and the teacher had an abstract, and I was looking at it like, are you serious? Like, I can't believe it. It's like, I'm seeing the same thing right here, right now, today, just like they said. And a lot of people don't understand the privilege within the African American community. It is, and it's something that I feel like has to be addressed, and people really have to look at it, or else we'll keep perpetuating that cycle.
Thank you. Well, for me, I'm an Inkster Viking, reading that maroon and white. And I learned about it very early on because we were taught Black history in our school, Miss Cobb. And so I heard of the letter in high school.
Wow.
However, it did not become a revelation until I heard about the Willie Lynch syndrome. I heard someone say that, and now I'm an adult, right? I'm no longer in high school. And so I think back about the letter, and I'm like, wow. And then when I looked at the Jigaboo and the Wannabe with Spike Lee, or whatever, and it's like, I guess I'm in the middle because I'm not as black as a Bugaboo and as light as a Jigaboo.
Right. Okay.
But
You
I
a
did
middle
start
boo.
to know I'm just boo. So, but I do recall having some friends who were lighter skinned and family members who thought that they were better because their skin was fair, but black don't crack. You ought to see them now.
Right.
They don't look like they, you ought to see them now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we're going to go, for our audience, before we get a little bit deeper into this discussion, we're going to look at this clip, the Willie Lynch letter, so you can get a little bit of a preview about this letter, and then we're going to break it down.
Okay.
Break it down.
Greetings, gentlemen. I greet you here on the bank of the James River, in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprisings, slaves are running away, your crops are sometimes left in the field too long for maximum profit, you suffer occasional fires, your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color, or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, Whether the slaves live in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action, but before that I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen.
So, we just heard the Willie Lynch letter, and we all shared our experiences of when we first heard about the Willie Lynch letter and the Willie Lynch syndrome. And in that excerpt, it said that it would last for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. So it's been several hundred
So far.
so far, and it's still prevalent.
Right.
I don't even know where I want to begin because, man, my emotions are running just raw at this moment. You know, I was so angry when I was reading the letter or whatever, not for myself, because I'm woke. I understand the principles of the letter. I understand the bondage and the mentality, and I just thank God that I'm strong enough not to be broken the way that they broke these females. But let's start with that. Breaking of the male, strapping him to a horse. And what did you call that action? Break the buck, buck breaking.
Buck breaking.
So they broke the horses, but they broke the men just like they broke the horses.
Exactly, because when you're a strong male, you're considered a buck. You know, and when you're a buck, same thing like they do with the, like I said, with the police department. They do the modern day buck breaking by pulling the man over, taking him out, putting him in handcuffs, sitting him down lower than him, and he's standing over them, right, to show a sign of dominance. Buck breaking.
Yeah, so let's look at that, because how does this letter affect us today? Because it still exists. And for the people and listeners who think that this is not factual, oh yes it is.
Yes.
Oh yes it is.
It's totally factual.
It's totally factual. And when they talk about bull whipping, how they would bull whip the buck, the man, almost to death, to breaking down in front of his wife and kids, so that they would be fearful. If the mother then became pregnant with a boy, she never wanted that to happen to her son.
Right.
So she already taught him to be subservient.
Right.
Like bow down.
Bow down.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't stand up.
But you know,
bow down.
you know, when a woman is pregnant and the baby sees all her, the baby gets all her feelings in her. So if she's pregnant and she sees this, the baby is feeling that automatically.
Yeah.
So that's putting it into it before the baby even come into the world.
So they come here with that fear. That's
Exactly.
deep right there.
Because the fear is
Right.
taught. It's not, you know, we don't come fear. When you have a baby will grab a snake. Won't you be scared of it?
I did,
'Cause you
and I
don't
got
know.
bit by one. I was one of those
Right.
babies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and you 100% correct, brother, when you said that we are born with fear. I believe it was in 2005. There's a scientist by the name of Randy Girdle, Jirtle, who was working on a project at Duke University, and he was the first one who brought epigenetics to life. Epigenetics, epi is above, and genetics. So we know what genetics are and DNA is, right? And if you look at epigenetics and genetics, what it is, genetics would be the hardware, like the computer. Epigenetic drives the genetics. So we're already encoded through our DNA, which are certain functions which you're born with. You're going to born with blue eyes, green eyes. You're going to have so far this color, this, that, and the other. These attributes are already in there. Our environment and our culture and our family is what drives epigenetics, and that what alters who we are when we come out. So when he said we are fear, we were born with fear because of that bullwhip, right? That he was talking about. That sting that was on the back has been encoded epigenetically into the unborn child today, right? Now, how is it relevant to you said from then to there? We simply call it, I'm going to give my child a what? A whooping. But where did we learn that from, right? We learned it from beating from the master. We transferred that same thing from past time to right now, as what this brother was just saying, right? Brother Action was saying. When he broke the buck, right, because he didn't want any, the master didn't want any resistance from the slave, he broke him, right? But also what he was talking about was the protection of the mother. Right? Where did she get that from then? Because she protected him in slavery time so he would not be sold off. So to stop him from crying and what have you, they beat him and made him docile. Same principle then applies right now. And sister, you were saying that this is a factual letter, right? It is a factual letter. Prosopopia means as though the person is actually speaking the truth, even though the person wasn't a real person.
Whoa.
So
say that again for me. Prosopopia.
Can I say it again? Prosopopia. Right?
Prosopopia.
It's a person who is actually speaking truth, even though that person did not actually exist.
Wow.
Now, even though the Willie Lynch, if it wasn't factual, it was still a doctor in 1920 by the name of John B. Watson. He did what you call the Little Albert experiment. If you can look up the Little Albert experiment. What they would do is take a baby, hold him by a limb, and act like they was going to drop him to give him fear. Or they'll take a baby and put sounds next to his ear. You know, like if a baby was sitting, they'll take a pot and pan and hit it right in front of him to scare the baby. You know, even if the Willie Lynch was unfactual, but we all know it's factual because we can see it.
Yeah,
we can see it.
You know, but you see there are other experiments, other doctors, John B. Watson, who in 1920 did experiments like that as well.
Well, I'm going to say this, piggybacking off of your scientific explanation of it. There's also something called adverse childhood experiences. And so I'm a trainer of that.
Yes.
And so it talks about the development of the synaptic nerve system in gestation, and then what happens in the formative years. And I will tell you that I believe that is true also, because I was born in 1964 in the middle of the civil rights movement in Alabama. My mother learned how to shoot a rifle at the age of 5 years old. Our family had some property near the railroad, and they wanted that for the pulpwood, so they were fighting and all of these other things. I don't take no crap. Zero. Like,
okay.
I am
None, absolutely none.
I was born with that Harriet Tubman, Nat Turner.
You got it in you.
I got it in me.
Okay.
It's invested.
I also have what? Anxiety.
Okay.
And I'm sure my mother had to have a lot of anxiety, not knowing if she was going to live or die from day to day, right? Just to get her education. But she also had me, I graduated before I actually graduated because my mother got pregnant before her senior year, and I graduated high school. So she was also studying with me in her, and I believe that has a lot to do with my level of intelligence.
Right.
Wow.
So I believe it's true because I'm a product of it.
Correct.
Exactly.
My anxiety, the fight or flight, I'm not fighting. I'm fighting.
Right.
I'm down with it. I have to make myself back. And I do have a lot of Harriet Tubman in me.
Right.
You know, and then Nat Turner, like I'm not taking any of that stuff from nobody. So that is true. The epigenetics,
Yes.
the adverse childhood expectation. I also got bit by a snake. I'm standing on a porch. I do not remember, but I was on the porch down in Alabama, and a car had pulled up, and I picked the snake up, and I had it in front of my face. It was licking its tongue out at me, so I was licking mine back. Okay, back at you.
Back at you, snake. Okay.
And my granddaddy, you know, of course he couldn't do anything.
Right.
So they just yelled, put it down. You know, just start yelling. And I threw it down, and it wrapped my leg, and it bit me.
Wow.
And I still have the bite on my leg today. So I knew my life had purpose.
Yes.
You know, to be able to survive all of that and still be here.
Yeah.
You know, my life has purpose. And not saying that anyone else doesn't, but I look at all of those incidents and say, wow.
Yeah. And we're talking about the Willie Lynch syndrome. So we know a syndrome is a combination of different ailments or factors. So what you're talking about, Dr. Joyce DeGruy wrote a book that's called the Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're talking about, so even though we know of post-traumatic
trauma disorder,
right?
Yeah.
That's the actual events of the whip of the slave,
Exactly.
right? And
That's where they got it from.
That's where they got it from. However, post-traumatic slave syndrome is epigenetically encoded into our DNA as though it is still exists
That's right.
within us today.
That's right.
Right. And so we are still in those same times. Time has not changed. We
Just
still
the people.
live in it, right?
Yeah.
And me, I was sharing this the other day. Sometimes, and I respect you for being tough, but sometimes when white people come into the room, automatically, without my permission, I take a second seat sometimes when I am unconscious. So I have to wake myself up to understand back to who I am, because I am still, at times, I go into an unconscious state and automatically run to the back of the bus without my permission. So I have to bring myself to my natural self to like what you just said, hey, I ain't going for this.
gotta
And then
relax.
sometimes I'm
Yeah.
out of pocket, and I have learned how to grow. I had to actually grow a spine, grow a pair, you get what I mean, to live life on life terms, understand that you wasn't put on here to be the footstool for nobody
right.
else
At
and
all.
what have you.
No one.
I was created
Absolutely
to be the head and not the tail.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Okay,
That's
right.
right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, because I GPS you to my behind fast.
See, you know, and this
Okay.
has been the demise of our community. If you look at it, it was
Yes.
intentional. It was done on purpose, and it's still happening to this day. And how do we reverse it? Because once something gets in your mind, it's so hard to let that
Yeah,
go.
it is, right.
And there's no control over other people's minds. So even with us being woke, the other person still has to participate. So how do
Right.
we reverse that? It's just, it seems like a losing battle, even though I know it's probably not. It seems like it.
Well, that's because we have some people who are not aware of what they should be doing.
Yeah,
Come on now.
Right.
Like
Right.
I agree with
They're
that.
not aware of what they should be doing. We running around, stay woke. No, you sleepwalking.
You sleepwalking,
Yeah.
right?
But see,
You're
Yeah.
not woke for real, because
Right.
if you were woke for real, you would realize that we are not free. Freedom is not free. And I'm not talking about the price that the military
Exactly.
pay, the price you have to pay.
That's right.
Exactly.
For your own freedom in your mind.
In your mind.
Which is a perfect segue. We're going to listen to this old Negro spiritual called Old Freedom.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back and talk more about the philosophy of keeping the body, but take the mind.
Okay. All right.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Over me.
And before I be a slave, I'll be buried dead in my grave.
That's a profound statement right there.
Yeah.
A very profound statement. But that goes to show the difference. And you and I were talking before we got on the air. A lot of people gave Kanye West a lot of hell for saying slavery was a choice. But you could have been dead in your grave, jumped over ship or whatever. But a lot of people didn't have the courage to do that. I would have been leading up a revolt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you look at it,
it
was more slaves than it was slave masters and slave families. But once they buck broke them, they took they took everything from them.
And it's the same with the penitentiary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
It's
what
the same with the penitentiary because it's a lot of inmates versus the number of guards.
Right.
Right, but they break you.
Right.
Some.
Yeah.
Some. So let's reflect on keep the body, but break the mind. Because they want it for the strength, right?
Well,
we want them to cultivate this land. We want them, to be best the industrial prison complex like we have today, right?
Yeah.
But they were just doing other things with cotton and, crops and things of that nature. So, Action, what is your take on that?
Well, they also wanted to for the breeding purposes. If you got a strong male, he's going to breed strong children. So that's going to help them. They take the mind, make the mind weak, but keep the body strong. And if you do that, then you're going to keep strong slaves that's going to be subservient to you, but they're going to be strong enough to get what you need to get done.
It's interesting you said that. Let me read this excerpt from the actual letter. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her normal female protective tendencies have been lost in the original breaking process. The next step is to bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear in God of him so he can still be useful for breeding.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, basically, think about it.
Now,
If you look at it, like when you have a dog, you see these guys with these pit bulls. They break the pit bulls down to be what they want them to be, but then they turn around and take the pit bull to mate with another pit bull with that bloodline. The same thing what they were doing with the slaves.
Wow.
Identical thing. Yeah. There's a book out, and I'm reading it right now, and I'm trying to recall the name of the author and the book. But anyway, one of the most overlooked process in slavery is the white woman.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The white woman of today throws the rock and hides the hand.
Exactly.
Saying that was my uncle, that was my daddy, that was my husband who did all that stuff that y'all talking about. My cousin, we ain't had nothing to do with that. We was this, that, and the third. What this brother was talking, what you talking about, take the mind, but leave the body.
Yes.
Right.
So in the slave process, there's a baby or a young child, a young buck has no value. He can't pick any, or she can't pick any cotton or drive a mule or dig a hole. So though the children and the babies, right, were thrown off to the side. You get what I mean? Like waste. You know, we don't need them because you ain't no good to me. The white woman actually took the babies herself, right? Got them on the low, got them for free, and she bred them. And she created her own stable, her own crop of slaves, if you will, and then she sold them. These children, right, had no knowledge of their history or the connection of where they came from. So what you actually had was zombies who didn't know that they were slaves and were doing the will of their master unconsciously because they had no connection to their past like them. They were more of a valuable commodity, and she did her own breeding, right? So the question is in the spiritual says that I'll be dead in my grave before I become a slave. But how if you don't know, how do you know if you're not a slave? How do you know that you are not a slave?
When
you grew up into this.
That's your norm, basically.
That's your norm.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was powerful.
But that's where we at now.
Right.
These people don't know
that they are slaves.
They don't know that they're slaves.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they
right.
Exactly. So that was a great point right there.
They are slaves under, and we're going to get to that.
Right.
What? Because the plantation still exists.
Right. See what they are they're somnambulant. Somnambulant. Right? Yep. Somnambulant means that you are fully functional with your motor skills, but you are sound asleep.
Zombie.
Wow.
You're zombie. Walking dead.
Walking dead.
Walking dead.
Well, you know, the young people have a term now called make it make sense. We making it make sense. So share all of this video with your kids, people you smoke your blunts with, your sugar daddies, whatever. We need
you know,
to wake up.
those are forms of slavery. You know,
right.
that sugar daddy stuff, that weed and everything, that's a form of slave.
Yeah.
You know, my sister right here to my left keeps saying, you know, plantation. But look at Chrysler Ford plant.
Come on.
You think that's a plantation? Yes, it is.
What is?
Yes, it is. And them guys are subservient. They get up every day. If you take all those guys and ask them why do they get up and go to work for somebody else, what are they gonna say? Because I'm supposed to. Ambient.
Somnambulant.
Yep. You know, they don't want to step out and try to build their own car with the knowledge that they got, with the tools that they got. They rather keep going and do it that way.
The plant is just an extension of the plantation. They're no longer we're. Because I can't separate myself from the process, even though I don't work in it. So I can't separate myself from the people.
Yeah,
right.
We still part of it.
Right. So we're not picking cotton anymore. We're making automobile parts. That's the product of them. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Right.
Wow. Well, let's do.
We got 2 hours, 3 hours. Come on.
Now we need 3 hours. We're gonna need part 2 up on this.
I'm ready, baby.
So, mental slavery.
Okay.
Let's take a look at that. So I have a clip on mental slavery, and this sister, she's from, I believe, Zimbabwe. She's African.
Okay.
And the way she breaks down the mental slavery and correlates it to things that are still happening today is real deep. So let's take a look at this video, mental slavery.
It's like we're mentally in prison. We're mentally in prison. We're mentally in prison.
To control the masses, they need the power of the creative imagination of every individual in the nation. It's why they constantly strive to get your attention, and the easiest way is to have you dine at a table of fear, where they serve you a feast through the images you see and the words that you hear. And they are happy to keep us divided through religious propaganda, through race and gender, because the moment we come together, we become stronger. We have become enslaved mentally through many years of social conditioning. When we think about slaves, we only like to think about the people who've been unfortunately physically oppressed and shackled by the limbs. But the worst kind of slavery is the kind that holds you bound in the mind. Understand that you are daily reprogrammed, conditioned, and manipulated by the powers that be. I already told you before, turn off the TV. The way to guard your mind is to take charge of what you listen to and what you let your eyes see. Because the more they can hold on to your attention, the easier it becomes to manifest more chaos and wars and hopelessness and fear through the power of your own mind. We must understand that the quality of a nation is not dependent on the men who hold political positions of power, but on the collective consciousness of the people together. And so to change the world outside of yourself, you must be willing to change the world inside of you first. And it is by changing our thinking that we are able to change our being. Who you are today is a sum of your beliefs, and what you now believe is a function of years of social conditioning, experience, and culture. Understand that you do not believe what you see what you already believe. So don't be afraid to question all things, to ponder and think, to discard the ideas of other men and let go of what you've been told. Forget what you think you know, just start again. More than half of the world is just zombies walking. They got brains but don't think for themselves. They're living unconscious, consumed by TV programming and addicted to the rush of dopamine from tele-devices and social vices. They know the right angles for the perfect selfies but don't know what the self is. They're focused on everything that's happening outside of themselves and living depressed, constantly comparing their lives to the highlights that they see on their feed when they swipe, and it's a hard life when you don't have 1,000 more likes, and worse, you're broke, you can't even afford life. This is mental slavery. As a species, we have slowly begun to teach our brains how to lose focus, constantly distracted by beeps and notifications, and we have learned social depression and the art of living unconscious. We are living in times of great mental slavery. We no longer think deeply before we speak. Instead, we're eager to type comments quickly in a beat to fit in. If you follow the crowd because their opinions are so loud that it drowns out the voice of your own powerful reasoning, then you are mentally enslaved. We live in the most advanced world that we could have ever dreamed of, and we have been provided with tools which have exponentially expanded our views, but instead of becoming renewed in the way that we think and in the things that we do, we have found ourselves today more depressed and confused, because the problem is not in the tools but in the way they are used. We must learn to begin consciously choosing for ourselves what we will follow, what we will think, and what we will do. All our lives we've been programmed to believe that we must accept whatever is handed down from generation through religion and education. We've been taught to believe that we cannot choose, that we are supposed to live by the code monkey see, monkey do. And this is mental slavery. So free yourself, own your mind, own your thoughts, and own your life. And the best place to start is to start with love. What is love?
We have to start by loving ourselves, because what you say to somebody is a reflection of how you feel about yourself when you put that energy in the world. I love myself. If you start thinking about love and start feeling love and thinking about forgiveness, then you can overcome things.
That sister was deep. That was powerful, and she hit the nail on the head. And divide and conquer, that divisiveness, we have a lot of that too, because of the jealousy and because of the skin color and all of the other things that's going on. But Marcus Garvey said this: the man who is not able to develop and use his mind is bound to be the slave of the other man who uses his mind. And Brother Hero, God bless you, brother, because this is a deep brother too. And he said we must shift from self-defeating behavior.
That's right.
Don't give our collective power away with a price to pay anyway, economically. So I tell you the cotton picking truth.
Right.
We still living on plantations. And let me tell you one of them: religion.
That's one of the biggest divide and conquer.
Because in the Willie Lynch letter, it said, remember the size of the plantation and the status of the plantation.
Exactly.
That's the church.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Religion.
Like I was just telling you, going down Puritan, look how many churches from Woodward to Southfield. And then, okay, every day of the week, if you go in the neighborhood on this one particular block, just take a particular block and look at it like this. Monday through Saturday, they speaking to each other. Come Sunday, you got a neighbor that's Muslim, a neighbor that's Jehovah's Witness, a neighbor that's Christian, a neighbor that's Baptist. Come Sunday, they're not speaking to each other. Form a division.
Yeah.
You know, divide and conquer. You know, and then we got to understand what we put in our bodies, toxic, no matter it be through what we read, what we see, what we taste, what we smell, it's toxic. If we seeing slave actions and we putting it in our mind, that's toxic. We not even accepting it as being toxic as people.
Yeah. The worst thing that happened to Christianity is when it became a religion.
Say that again.
The worst thing that happened to Christianity is when it became a religion.
Yes.
Understanding that Islam, Judaism, and Christianity are peripherals of African spirituality. They have been hijacked by our enslavers to do the bidding of themselves by, of course, we don't have to go into that story, by painting the image of Jesus, right, as a white man and saying that he is equal to God. Exactly. So we understand that, right? So understanding religion and the church are something that is totally different than from Christianity
and spirituality.
You get what I'm saying?
But a lot of people don't understand.
They don't understand what I'm saying, right?
They don't understand.
They won't get it.
Because, like Pastor Duckworth
Didn't he say yesterday?
I don't want the Jesus that hold a little white lamb.
Come on now. Right.
I want the one that walk with the broken.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Mental slavery by religious leaders is more dangerous and blind than original slavery in America.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Look how these people follow these so-called pastors.
Blindly.
You know, they give them all their money. But the pastor sit up here, have a Jag, have a brand new big house. But you got Sister Duckworth in your congregation. Her light's about to get cut off. She come to you and say, hey, can you help me with this? This is my bill. Oh, we can't take up no fund for that, but we can take up a building fund.
Well, Pastor, my lights was out last week. Can I get an offering?
Right.
But there are some, for a caveat, there are some churches that do benevolent work.
Yes.
This is not a blanket statement, but what I am saying is, what is interesting to me, the billboard on the outside is always something attractive to get you to come in.
Yeah, right.
That message need to be on the inside when you go out, because half of those people in there don't know how to act when they come outside of the building.
Right. Now, we can't shoot a hole in the boat that brought us across because we may need that boat to get us back. So we're not church bashing, we're telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
But if you follow the church coming through slavery, through Jim Crow era, through the civil rights era, it was that vehicle that got us to where we're at today. However, what happened? What threw that boat off course? It got caught up in what's called a 501c3. When they became 501c churches, they lost their voices and they could no longer speak out against social injustices that were taking their place. Exactly. So what they
Say that, brother.
Yeah. So they sold their soul out for the dollar. But here's where the ignorance comes into play. They never had to do it anyway because there was always a separation of church and state.
Always.
So we have when the scripture says that we have spiritual wickedness in high places. This is what we're talking
Ephesians
about.
11:12.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And and I could go all day on this, and this is why I said, right, that we can't shoot a hole in the boat that brought us across because we may need to get back. What we got to do is we got to get that helmsman out of there, out of the one who's leading the boat in the wrong direction, and get the person who take this vehicle knows what to do with it.
Well, since we're talking about direction, I'm glad I had my mother, because if I'm going somewhere, I'm not going to ask someone for directions that's going in the same direction I'm going in when I see someone coming back.
Right.
I'm going to ask the person that's coming back. So my mother had these experiences with religion versus Christianity being down south. Those meetings that the civil rights leaders had at the church. And all of the things that happened in the little small church where you just had a piano and that sister beating that tambourine or whatever. It didn't have to be this production. Right? And they stuck together for social justice and helped people.
Right.
You would, if they were fried chicken dinners or whatever to raise money to bury somebody else, or they really stuck together, and we don't have that. So I say that I'm telling you the cotton picking truth, that's one plantation. But here's another. Our school system, we've gone from busing back to busing.
That's right.
And not only busing, how can you tell me that my kid can't wear their natural hair the way that they're supposed to wear it? And they cannot graduate?
Right.
And what about this lady who took a black Sharpie marker because the boy had the zigzag part in his hair and colored it? My great nephew stays with me all the time, and he wanted one of those haircuts, and I had to tell him no, because see, I have a lot of work to do, and I'd be locked up if I get his just a part. It was just zigzag, and somebody colored my baby's hair with a marker. I'm tearing that ass up.
You have to. That's a form of disrespect. First of all, you have no business touching the kid with chemicals.
Now, you 100% correct. But we're still talking about slavery. And if you recall, I broke down what the white woman's role in slavery is, right? The reason why she could do that, if you look at the public school system, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, 90% of the public school teachers are white women. Now, you have to understand her evolution from slavery all the way through the KKK, which was the women's auxiliary, the KKK.
Right.
Those became our teachers, our lawyers, our social workers,
nurses,
and everything like that. It's the reason why it's called the Invisible Empire, because it's still existing and it's still in place right now. The reason why she felt comfortable to do those things and cut hair and what have you is because why? That is still her property.
It's her job.
And that's her job, and that's what she does even to this day. And we need to address that issue right there.
But this is what bothers me. When you say we need to address the issue, you're absolutely right. And where I remember summer of 2019, I was at a camp with 100 inner city kids, but we went to camp. Some of them had never left Detroit before. And while we were up there with them, I read an article and also got a call of distress from a mother of a black child in the Canton School District who was playing volleyball, and he had hit the boy with the volleyball in the face. And Kim Worthy allowed charges to be pressed against this boy. Now, hear me good. This very same time, this made news now. It's national news, and Ray Page had... all of these attorneys taking a look. It took D.L. Hughley to say something to get some national attention to it. But guess what was going on in Detroit right at the same time? The NAACP National Convention. That would have been a good time to do one of them Malcolm X moves. This way, that way.
Exactly.
But we don't do that. What? The National Association of Chicken Park Conference.
Thank you.
Go, right. There you go. Call it for what it is. We right.
You know what?
You get your $100 chicken breast and ain't did shit.
Oh, yeah.
You just did this and said, hey, we got this problem. Because the NAACP has what? A legal defense fund. That lady was putting up a GoFundMe account to protect her kid.
But who controls the NAACP?
Right.
It ain't.
Let me calm myself down.
It ain't black. The blacks ain't in here.
They don't.
How can a NAACP have white people in it? It's supposed to be the national advancement of colored people,
but
right?
It started with white people.
From the beginning, at the Niagara movement.
It was only like 7 blacks and the rest were white. It started with white people.
When they started it, why did they start it? So whoever was in that, all those blacks that was in it should have stepped away from it.
W.B. Du Bois.
Exactly.
He said, I can't go along with this right here. Exactly. And he walked away from it.
And he wanted to start his own thing. Right. I can't remember what he tried to start. I can't remember the thing. But see, what we need to do is they do a lot of play on words. We got to look at the etymology of words. The etymology means the beginning of where a word come from, the origin of a word. Right. So when we look up the word religion, means to rely on.
Yeah.
And so we need to stop relying on the public school system to teach our children.
Wow. Well, you know what?
Wow.
Our
Part 2.
time.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
I cannot believe this.
And I didn't even break this down where integration wasn't doing us a favor. It was by design because they know we stronger together. As Stephanie Rochelle said, we stronger together. So let's break this up.
Exactly.
And we had that Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they bombed that.
Bombed it.
And then they said, well, let's integrate. you know, we
Exactly.
don't
Come together, nah.
because we were stronger together. So you know what? We need to pick this back up, and we have a guest that's pending next week. If we don't get a confirmation, maybe would you brothers come back?
I'll come back right now.
We need to finish talking about this. This should have been a 2-hour
Come back
show.
right now. You know, when we say break it up, when we put up the black fist, look at that. That's strong, right? But see, when you break it up, you open your hand up, you can divide and conquer and break each finger. So if you keep it like this, you do more damage. But when you do like this, you can get broken up, and that's what they've been doing. They've been opening our hands. Because remember, we used to do this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somebody said, great. My sister Donna, hey, she said, great show. I need more.
Yes, and I think we will pick this up. Thank you so much, my new brother.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
Right?
The mayor.
She got me on short notice. I think she called me just a couple hours
If
ago.
that
right?
was short notice, I hate to see if you would have really thought about what you were going to say, man. And
But he lives it. That's the thing. You don't got to think about something when it's the life that you live.
when
It's
it's
what
what
you
you
breathe.
do.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
thank you so much, Action. And everybody knows Trische is my producer, my sister, my
Thank you.
sidekick, my friend. And as you all know, I say this every week.
Every week.
Every week.
The goal of black coffee, no sugar, no cream, is not to spill the tea or make you feel like you drank a shot of cheap liquor. It's just to see things from a different perspective, mine. And we know a change is going to come when we wake up and come together. So we're going to go out on that. Have a wonderful week, my brothers and sisters, listeners. I love you all. Couldn't do this without you. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.